Now I'm turning the bow over, and now we're working the top end, and we're going to do almost exactly the same thing that we just did on the bottom end. We cut that top piece off, and now we're going to go ahead and take this little clip off of here for a minute so it's easier for you to see without the cordage getting in the way. And we're going to make that cut at the end with the push cut, just to round that off a little bit so that there's no problem with the bow splitting out as it begins to dry. This bow will dry pretty quickly because the wood is thin. You can see at the top end it's probably the size of my thumb, well, maybe even a little smaller, maybe the size of my pinky. At the bottom end it's the size of my thumb. I don't want this to a point, but again, just those facets to keep it from splitting out so quick. What a lot of people will do is, if they're making a traditional bow and it's more long-term, you let your wood season for 5-6 months, a year, they will actually take this and cover it with glue or with wax. I guess you could use pine pitch if you were out in the bush, and that will stop it from splitting. But these end cuts are real good. What I'm going to do is round the top of this off. It got a little more pointed than I want, so I'm going to round the top off. And again, that'll keep it from splitting out for me too much while it's drying. And this is going to dry over time, as I said. It's going to take weeks and weeks to properly dry, but after a day this will be ready for usage. As it dries, the poundage will actually get stronger on the bow. Well, we've got our knots on both ends. We have 2 down here, 1 up top to put our string through. You can see the belly of the bow. As we look down there, you can see the curvature, and you can see that it's curving up. What we're going to do now is to string this bow with some 550 paracord, and then we're going to hang it. I'm going to show you a way that you can actually put some bend on this bow as it dries to get it into the shape that you want it. As the bow dries over time, immediately it may have 25-30 pounds of pull. Down the road, as this dries, we could end up with a pretty nice bow, 40-45 pounds. But it's got to dry out, it's got to be seasoned and taken care of. But again, this is a quick bow, something that we can use right away to get game out in the woods. So let's go string it up and see how it works. What I've done is I've tied a little stopper knot here, and I'm just going to make a small overhand slip knot. What's going to happen with that is that stopper is going to hold it from slipping out, and I'm going to put that over the top end of the bow. This is where the single piece is. We're going to put that in there so that it ties down tight and locks. And you can see that stopper knot locks it down for us. So let me get that up in there. And again, if this doesn't work, we could put that second notch on top, but I don't think we need to. There's good. Now we've got that held in place. You can see that's in there nice and tight. What we're going to do is go down to our tree. We're going to string this around a tree and tighten this up around this and pull it tight to actually pull that curve in there that we want. So let's go down to the tree and let's get it put around there. What I'm doing, you may remember this tree that has the V in it that we use to straighten our primitive spear. What we're going to do is to put the center of this bow. Now, we've not even worried about a handhold yet or the center, but the center is going to be right about in this area. The balance point is right on that knot, so that's going to be the center of our bow. What we're going to do is to put that center point and use this tree as a vise. And what I can do now is to pull this back and to slip this cordage back through this other piece and begin to put pressure on that bow. Now I've got that double notch there, and I'm going to put not a whole lot of pressure, but enough to hold it for a day. Just throw a half hitch through here at the end, and that should hold her in place. I've gone underneath that cord a couple times and on top of that cord a couple times. I'm just throwing a couple half hitches to keep this in place, and we will come back tomorrow and get this back out of the tree. If you come look here on this angle, let me turn it around for you, you can actually see the bend in the bow. As you can see now, we've put the curve where the natural curve is into this bow, we've actually tied it. And we can put more in there if we want. We don't want any more at this point. We can also adjust this to get that curve exactly where we want it. But where we want it is on that handle. So we're going to put it back here. And I'm going to just have that string nice and tight like that. And we're going to leave that set up overnight. And that's going to put a nice curve in our bow. So we'll be back with you tomorrow on part 2 or 3, whichever this is, and show you how this bow finished out, how it's held the curve. And it's going to spring back a little bit when we're done. That's okay, because that spring is still going to be in there when we go to use the bow. We'll shoot some arrows through this and see how it does.